Hi, I'm Dr. Dan Woodruff of Vibrate-A-Way. I want to say hello to everybody out there. Before we go on with our next topic, I've been asked about my sweatshirts. I don't know if many of you are football fans. I am. I happen to be a Canadian Football League fan, so a lot of the sweatshirts you'll see me wearing when we do broadcasts are of different teams in the Canadian Football League. I'm a huge Canadian football fan, so if anybody has comments or anything they would like to converse about with Canadian football, please do. The last time we talked, I was talking about complexity versus simplicity. And hopefully some of you noticed that we kind of went in a little bit of a circle. See, there's a dichotomy there. It's usually the simplest answer, but you can't simplify it. Well, that makes no sense. Well, it kind of does. Instead of a shoulder injury being bone cancer or a torn muscle which will require surgery, it's probably just a musculoskeletal sprain or strain. But where the complexity comes in is it might not be at the shoulder. It actually could be caused by your hips. See, it's all connected. And that's today's topic. Giving your body respect. The cold hard fact that you don't want to hear is you can't abuse your body over time and expect it to perform. One of the biggest kicks I get out of practicing is to see people totally abuse their body and be bewildered when it quits performing anymore. You see, we have a notion that if you take care of your body after you do some kind of exertions, some kind of exercise, whatever it might be, that if you take care of it afterwards, you're just pampering yourself. You know, I'm tougher than that. Or if before we go out to rake leaves, we don't stretch. We don't think of applying heat or doing anything of that nature. We just go out and rake leaves. We think that pre-game warm-ups and post-game attention and care is reserved for professional athletes. You know, it's a different type of thing, but they're still utilizing their body, putting force into it and out of it, having stress applied to it, torsion, friction being there in their movement, all the things that we do when we rake leaves. They'll play a 2.5-hour game, yet we'll rake leaves for 6 hours. And yet we have higher standards for ourselves than we do professional athletes. Now, in what world does that make sense? What world does that make sense? You see, we have to change our brain and how we think about our body. When I talked about maybe it was the hip causing the shoulder pain, you see, that's because everything is connected. Now, we all know this. You know, we all know hip bone's connected to the knee bone and so on. I don't want to sing. I don't want to do that to you. But that simplistic song is truer than you can even imagine. It is a complex relationship in the human body. Why? Because it is designed to still function even if a certain area goes down. A lot of the research in biomechanics and what goes on with human movement, what people don't understand about their body is it's a machine. Whether you want to hear it or not, it's a machine no different than your car. Yes, your body houses a soul, and it's made of carbon, but that's it. You have to follow the same laws of physics as a machine does. What does that mean? Well, forces like gravity play a role into it. You see, when we stand straight, up and down on the floor, there's a line called the center of gravity. That's where gravity goes through our body and pulls us down onto the earth. It goes through your ear, your shoulder, your hip, your knee, and your ankle bone, a straight line. if you're forward of that line any little bit, it now affects the performance of your joints and your muscles. It's as if I took a 2.5 pound weight and held it here. Weighs 2.5 pounds. I take it out here, and all of a sudden that weight might be about 3.7 pounds. Why? Because it's further away from the midline. So if I have a head that's craned way forward from the midline, guess what? It's going to be heavier. Or at least it's going to feel heavier. And my body has to respond. Neck muscles have to get tightened up to hold it. My shoulders will in. All my movement has changed. That's if I have a tire on the left side of my car that is going down in air. Now all of a sudden my car's pulling to the left. So what do? I start to oversteer to the right. That creates more work on that car to steer more towards the right to keep it level. Same principles. Same principles. Yet we take care of our cars so much better than we do our bodies. Who gets oil changes every 3,000 to 5,000 miles, right? No. If our body was a car, they'd be called runners. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but a runner is a car that you just run into the ground. Then you get a new one. We treat our cars better than our bodies, yet we can always buy a new car. You got one body. And so what happens is we dance the tune, but we don't think about paying the piper. I know that because you won't believe how many 70-year-olds come into my clinic not happy that they're having to pay the piper, and they live in a life of pain. That's the reality of it. It has nothing to do that you're old. I can't tell you how many people will say to me, well, I guess that's just getting old. Bull crap. That's what I say. Just because you're old doesn't mean things fall apart or break down. Yes, there are some realities of aging that we'll talk about in another episode, but for the most part, just because you're old doesn't mean that your movement should become less and that you're just resigned to living in pain. You see, it's driving with that left flat tire for years and years and years that will make that car break down. It is carrying around an old accommodation to an injury for years and years and years that leads to arthritis. We're going to talk about arthritis in another episode as well. But here's the bottom line. Your body is like a car. It's a finely tuned machine. And it's delicate. It's not a beat-up pickup truck. It's a high-end sports car. And they take a lot of attention. So does your body, whether you want to hear that or not. Give it the respect it deserves. Don't hold yourself above warming up, taking care of the body after exertion. I mean, if it's good enough for Tom Brady, it's good enough for you. Just because he gets millions of dollars for throwing a football around the field and playing a competitive sport and getting hit, doesn't mean he is not putting his body under stress like you are when you rake your leaves for 5 hours. Or you move an entire house in 2 days. Treat your body with respect. You'll thank yourself later on, I guarantee you. Until later, this is Dr. Wooder saying goodbye.